Good morning. Who partied last night? Who went to bed before midnight? Okay, 1 o'clock. 2? 3? How late? How late? 3? Okay, cool.
No, I mean you were getting.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about Google Summer of Code. I'll introduce myself really quickly. My name is Chad. I had the opportunity to work with the Summer of Code program this last summer with a couple of other people, and we're going to talk about what we did and what's going to happen next year, hopefully. So just a quick overview. We're going to talk about what Summer of Code is if you don't know, what we did in the Joomla version of it, the projects that we had, and some of the things that we learned and the results. So, does everyone know what GSoC is, what Google Summer of Code is? No? Okay, good. The next slide's for you. This is the GSoC formula. We have Google with a lot of money and some students from around the world. They have to be university students enrolled in a university. They can be any age, just as long as they're enrolled, they're applicable. And Google pays them to write free open source code with an open source organization. So in this case, it was Open Source Matters in Joomla, but it could be anything like Apache or Linux or whatever. So that's what makes up kind of an overview of what Summer of Code is. There's a lot more involved, but that's the formula. It's not scientific. This year, over 180 organizations, free open source organizations, worked with Google to take part in Google Summer of Code. OSM and Joomla got to be one of those 180 organizations. We had more than 50 students apply to Joomla to work with us. They wanted to write code and do projects with Joomla. They probably wanted to do as many as they could. A lot of students just wanted to get something, but we had more than 50 apply to us. We thought that was really cool and special. We got to accept 7 of them. At the end, we boiled down 50 students to about 10, and then on, and we ended up with 7. With our 7 students, we had 14 mentors. What we did is we assigned a main mentor to each student and a backup mentor. So this really helped if a main mentor got really busy, had things like life get in the way, couldn't spend all their time with the student. A backup mentor is great to have because they can quickly answer questions, respond to things, and whatnot. So we had 14 really official mentors. The entire community really got involved with the mentoring and code review and assisting people. Some other things, there were 3 awesome co-admins, and I say that as one of them. So a little brevity there. We had major support from people like the PLT and open source teams. This comes on every Saturday. Sorry about that. Oh, 2 of them. Okay. And then, of course, as I said, the entire community really gets involved with going over projects and helping students out. We did something that I don't know, I've never heard of another organization doing this before in open source GSoC program, but we did webinars. So what we did is we had a couple people from the community come in and do a webinar with the students to really get them up to speed really quickly on how to work with Joomla. And so we did something for Git and Eclipse and Fing, and then Elin did a great just in general contributing to Joomla webinar. So this was a really cool way to get the students really quickly involved and really quickly figure out how to best contribute the Joomla way. All right, here is all of our students. We're going to go through their projects, but you can quickly look over where they are from. We kind of had, there's really 2 ways. Joomla, of course, has 2 big things, the CMS and the platform. And I broke it down into 3 categories in terms of the projects that we had. We had one major CMS feature, and then we had 4 main platform packages that got built. And then we had a couple of platform applications that also had some packages and things get written. So the platform stuff kind of gets all mixed together, but I broke it out into 3 categories. So let's talk about the first one. We're going to talk about Aaron's Google package. And Aaron is here, by the way. So if I say something wrong, he can correct me. But how many people were in Lewis's keynote the other day? Should be pretty much everyone. He talked about web services, things like that. That's what this is all about, okay? Aaron wrote a really great Google class, really, that allows you to work with Joomla and connect to Google in all sorts of different ways. So you can connect to Google Maps and the calendar and really anything Google, right? Just about?
Yeah, the credit for Google Plus actually goes to Diana.
Oh, I think I have her on both.
Okay.
I have both, yeah, because it's hard to tell. So if you want to use Joomla and work with Google applications, this is going to really help you if you're writing a platform application or a CMS component or extension. You can use this as a developer to really get involved with the Google stuff. And so think about how many applications are on the JED that work with Google, like Analytics or Maps. All those guys are implementing their own version of connecting to Google. So by having a class, we are allowing the developer to spend more time working on the fun stuff and not dealing with getting and receiving data from Google. So this is a really quick and easy way to work with Google applications. All right, Diana. I have her on the Google Plus too. She wrote a social package. Social is huge, right? In everything, we're talking about social. So it makes really good sense to be able to connect to a bunch of social networks without having to deal with how do I do this, what's the best way to do it, and having to rewrite the same thing all the time. So just have a general class that allows you to do that, allows you to connect to those services really quickly and really easily and not duplicate our efforts all the time. Okay. Minification. This is getting really, really big, especially with Bootstrap and things like that. We're really starting to care about how JavaScript gets included, what it looks like when it comes out. It even has some SEO benefits. The faster your site loads, Google treats you a little bit better, things like that. So using the Minification package, you can include a JavaScript file or a CSS file, and before it ever makes it out to the server and gets sent out to a browser, it's been minified and compressed, and that just increases your performance, and it's amazing. So we got a huge truck down to a little tiny car in this case. All right. The MediaWiki package. This is another way to connect with, and Prasath is here. So this allows us, just like connecting to Google and connecting to Twitter or LinkedIn, we can connect to MediaWiki. Think about harnessing the power of an API connection to Wikipedia or something like that. You can use this to connect to any MediaWiki and pull data from that. Does that make sense? It's cool. It's really cool. All right. This is the CMS feature that we had. This is not a platform feature. This is not a platform project. This is a CMS project. And if you've used Joomla from 1.0 or 1.5 and even 2.5, if you didn't speak English, the process to get Joomla in your language was a little difficult. It started out with the installer. You would select your language, and then you would run through the entire installer. And then when you were done and you went and you logged into Joomla, it was back in English. And then you would have to go through the process of making your way through an admin interface that you probably have never seen before, find your language package, install it, and then you could have Joomla in your language. Javier did some work where in the installer you select your language and you run through the installer in your language. And when you're done, before you even log in, it says, do you want to install this language into your Joomla site before you even get logged in? So once you've selected your language on the very first page of the installer, you never have to go back to English. You can have Joomla in your language from then on. And then you can install as many languages as you want right from here. So this is a really cool feature. It's a great multilingual translation feature, and the translation team is in love with this feature. It's amazing. So this is really great. Okay. We talked a lot about web services the other day. Web services is really big for the platform. And what this allows us to do is to write APIs into Joomla and connect and send a request to Joomla and get a response back that's been formatted in JSON. So think any application that you're building, if you want to make that an API and allow yourself or other people to start pulling data from your Joomla site, you can do that using this thing. And this is both a package and an example of how to do it yourself. So when you're writing your own application, you're building your own business or your own service, you can then say, now I want to build an API on top of that. So you can use Joomla to build something really cool that has an API. All right. Warning. The next one, that's over my it's over my head a little bit. Does anyone know what a Petri net is? You know what a Petri net is?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because Petri dish.
Uh-huh.
That was mine.
No.
I'm not a programmer.
It's not quite that. Petri net in and of itself is a theoretical, mathematical-based theory that's out there. And so what we did is Florian took this idea of Petri nets and implemented it as an application in Joomla. But it is so generic and so far away from anything that you would ever want to do in Joomla, we had to figure out a way to make it make sense and useful, because it's in and of itself, it's so abstract, it wasn't really making sense to do anything. So we had to say, okay, what can we do with this to make it useful to developers? And we came up with workflow. So the idea is that you can have something that has multiple states, and you can manage the process of something, anything, using this system. And you're doing it programmatically, so you can programmatically assign a state and work through how something, whatever it is, it could be a record in a database or an application or a system that's running, whatever it is, you can programmatically do a workflow for that. Like I said, this one is really over my head, and if you're, what's that?
That's the thing. It's like you have to know graph theory.
Yeah, this is way over. This is really cool for someone, and Florian would love to talk to people about this. So if you have questions, talk to Florian for sure. Okay? All right. Before I go into all the results, does anyone have any questions about a particular Summer of Code project that I talked about?
Well, these I came in late, so are these all
Uh-huh.
just extensions you download, or are
These-
integrated already into 3.0? Or?
These are, okay, so kind of results, kind of projects. We had 7 projects total. Most of them were platform projects, which means that they were written to work on the platform. Eventually, because the platform and the CMS get coupled together later on, the CMS is built on the platform, those things will be useful to extension developers. So these aren't extensions that you can download from the JED or anything like that. They are tools for other developers to use and write applications that can go on the JED. So it's just, have you worked with the platform at all?
No.
Okay. Essentially, it's the building blocks for other applications. All right, some of the results. All the students in Summer of Code, we consider them successful, which means we have the option to pass or fail them, and that also determines whether or not Google pays them. Everyone got paid, as far as I know. So we said they were all successful. The mentors all agreed that the projects were successful. So on all counts, these things were successful. The CMS has merged the translation project already, and they're working on the 3.0 version right now, or they're almost done with it, I think. If Javier was here, he could tell us exactly. The platform packages are almost all in the staging area of the platform. Most of them have been assigned to come out with the December release, at least two or three of them, and some of them will be coming on later as they kind of fix a couple things. So most of them are coming. The students are still contributing. 2 of them are here. Several other of them have already started doing other things with the platform, making pull requests on GitHub and whatnot. So in terms of getting these students long-term, we have this talent now. They've adopted Joomla and they've come into the community. They just come for the summer and then leave. They're here and they're part of the community as a result. So that's really wonderful because there's some really talented people.
Florian had his first merge into the platform 5-6 days ago or so. So it was the first commit after.
Yeah.
That was merged. So.
Right. Here's some really cool statistics. I ran a quick lines of code analysis. In total, we had 18,000 lines of code from all the students. That doesn't include Javier's translation project, so it's probably 20,000 or something like that. Estimated, according to D. Wheeler's lines of code generator, it should have taken about 3 years to do all this, and we did it in a summer of 3 months. A little credit to David. Okay. The impact of this, really big impact. It helps the entire community. This isn't something that a few people are going to benefit from. This is something the entire community can benefit from, and that's really important. It's reusable code for all the developers. Anyone who writes extensions or works on the CMS or works on the platform is going to be able to use these tools and save themselves time and effort because of what the students have done here. It is web services. Almost all of the projects had something to do with a web service. So if you're building applications that are connecting to other applications, Joomla becomes the glue that ties things together. And that's really useful and really important. The trickle-down effect. The CMS right now isn't getting all of these benefits, but in a couple of weeks, when the platform pushes all their stuff out, the CMS gets to adopt it. And then application developers in the CMS world get to start using it. And they start writing components and plugins, and the entire ecosystem just gets a ginormous boost out of what the students did. Everyone wins. That's what I'm trying to say, okay? Okay, so is there going to be a summer of code next year? We don't really know. Maybe. Google is really, really cautious about saying, well, if there's a summer of code, and maybe we'll do a summer of code, but we won't really know until they say, yeah, we're doing summer of code. So they've done this every year for the last almost 10 years, I think. So there's probably a pretty good chance, wink, wink, that there's a summer of code coming, but we can't say that there is or not. We got some feedback from the mentors, which is really important to review because we need them. The mentors are essential to running this program successfully. And some of the things that they said to do was really get the students involved and engaged even more. And we think we did pretty good, but if we can improve, we definitely want to improve it. The mentors wanted a little more orientation. They didn't quite understand what was expected of them early on, how much time commitment they needed to provide to Summer of Code. So we have to set some expectations a little further out there and give more information to mentors so that they feel comfortable and they're not worried if they're doing enough or they're doing too much. We would like to incentivize the mentoring a little bit in some way. We don't know what that will entail. As it is, the mentors don't get anything out of it other than the wonderful feeling in their heart for mentoring. So, and a T-shirt. They do get a T-shirt, and that I guess for some people that's really incentivizing. So we're going to think about ways to try and incentivize mentoring a little bit. We don't know what that is, but we're going to try and think about it. We did learn a couple of things. We learned that we need to prepare a lot more, a lot further ahead of time. We kind of got caught off guard with Summer of Code this year. I think we were submitting the application the day of or the day before, and we had worked on it all the day before that, and it was, really rushed time schedule to get into Summer of Code. It worked out, but we are going to try and prepare a little more ahead of time. We're going to try and do some more things with check-ins and make sure that we're connecting with the students and knowing what's going on and that they don't go off and get quiet for a little while and then come back. We want to make sure we're always connecting with them and interfacing with them consistently. It just helps everything. I learned a lot about time zones. A lot about time zones. Our students were from all over the place, everywhere. Sri Lanka, France, US, where else? Bucharest, yeah, everywhere. So when you pretty much had 7 different time zones, plus all the mentors. If you're trying to get the mentors on the call, they're all over the place. And then even the admins, well, actually all the admins were East Coast pretty much. So that wasn't too bad. But just trying to get everyone to do a simple call, a conference call on Skype, we literally did 2 a day, 1 in the morning and 1 at night, so that we could all, I could at least talk to everyone at some point in time. So I learned a lot about time zones. All right, that is the end of my slide presentation. Special thanks, of course, to everyone in the Joomla community who made Summer Code possible. It really wouldn't have been possible without the people here and without all of you in the community out there. So thank you to everyone. All right, that's it. Questions? Oh, plug. Ronnie is just after the fact. Ronnie has hired one of the students. 2 of the students have started a startup based on the platform. Some of the students are here. So really cool things for the students kind of in the afterlife of Summer of Code. Questions?
Languages. How
Languages.
difficult was that?
It wasn't too bad. I think we expected it to be worse than it was. But most of the students had fairly good English skills, and we only talked on the phone a couple of times. Besides that, they would just write emails, and so they might have used a translator, but I don't think it was too bad. And since they're university students, they've taken some English courses and whatnot, so languages wasn't a huge problem. I'm sure in other organizations it definitely is. For us, it ended up not being a concern. All right. How early did I end?
10 minutes already.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, everyone.